How? You turn.
Welcome to Awful Creepypasta. And today, we are joined once again by Eric.
Hello.
Today is going to be a special day. It is called Jeff Friday, where every other Friday we are going to do a pasta based off of Jeff from the new Jeff the Killer wiki. It's called Go to Sleep. It's stupid. And so we've been looking, and we found a story called Jeff the Killer, True Hatered. That's going to show up on the screen right now. The title's already in error. Alright, here we go.
Boy.
Almost 6 years had passed since that fateful day that changed Jeff's life forever. With his psyche destroyed, he wore his scars with pride and left no room in his cold deed heart for remorse. His actions were what they were. His murderous ways were not evil as far as he was concerned. He was perhaps almost kind.
No, he wasn't.
He himself a savior of... He himself a savior sorts. People, after all, were born to die by Lana Del Rey. He was only speeding up the process, saving them from a cruel, empty world. Jeff woke up in the damp, dismal, abandoned warehouse he'd retreated to the morning before, just after brutally taking the lives of 3 innocent motorists. What? He smiled to himself as he remembered the look on their terrified faces.
Remember Ed.
Oh yeah, he remembered. True Hatered. He remembered the look on their terrified faces as the knife was plunged into their guts. Slowly and painfully, he'd carved out their stomachs, their innards spilling out onto the road. He remembered the sound of their desperate cries as they choked on their own practically considered blood. What?
Damn, that must be my blood.
Yeah! And felt only pleasure as he remembered seeing his victims' faces frozen in terror as the light left their eyes, and he'd muttered those last foreboding words, "Go to sleep!" For the time being, his sick and twisted desire was sated. His sick and twisted desire was Satan, and it was time for him to move on. Ever since that vicious... What? Ever since that night he'd so viciously murdered his family, he'd never stayed in one place for longer than a couple of days. He felt confident enough that the police would find him. He was now an unstoppable force of nature. This is going to be a fun one for Christian to edit. But to keep moving. There were, after all, so many people who just needed to go to sleep because
they can't problem sleeping.
At 5 in the morning after watching Kill Bill. Jeff stretched himself out and rose to his feet. He could see that it was still dark out and that it was raining and had been for most of the night. But it really was time to move on. He was beginning to get hunger pangs, as it had been some time since his last meal. So he all the same, carefully lifted his hood over his head and headed out into the darkest streets. Proofread! Jeff guessed it must have been past midnight as all the streetlights had gone out. No! That doesn't happen! The streetlights go out at like 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
What? Typical in small neighborhoodies and quiet streets.
The return of Eddie.
Jeff, being well accustomed to the blackness of the night, had little trouble navigating the dark, damp streets, and walked quickly to find either a 24-hour store or a gas station. The money he'd stolen from his latest victims admittedly wasn't as much as he'd hoped for, but it was more than enough to purchase a sandwich and a train ticket out of here. You can't buy train tickets in 24-hour stores.
Also, do you think you can buy a train ticket with that face?
That's all I'm thinking.
Give me a thing! It's his back brace. Jeff didn't have to walk far before he found himself on a well-lit, without the streetlights, yet desolate stretch of road that seemed familiar. Suddenly, his attention was stolen by the loud honk of a horn.
It was
honk. It was KFC. Everyone thought the exact same thing. He looked up and across the street, an old rundown gas station. A large neon sign that read "Gas" hung above it and glowed an eerie red and scary, illuminating the place and flickering from time to time. Before Hefe had a chance to proceed, however,
The memory hit him
like
a ton
of
bricks.
Alright, now we're gonna go into a flashback.
Ton of bricks.
Who wants to be... Okay, I'll be Jeff. Who wants to be Liu? Can you do a Japanese
I
person?
can do
Yeah,
Liu.
okay. They were driving road crash home.
Having a crashed car.
They were driving road crash home.
E.T. phone.
Returning from a disastrous family reunion. It was late afternoon and irritable. Mom, Jeff whined. I'm so thirsty.
Me too.
Liu joined in. Can't we stop for a drink? The boy's mother, Margaret, turned in her seat to face her 7-year-old son.
Jeff, we stopped not 10 minutes ago.
I know, but I'm tired, thirsty. Margaret turned to their father. Turned to their father, Peter, who grimaced.
I guess we could stop off at the next gas station.
Christopher Walken. As they pulled into a rundown gas station, Jeff stared out the window. He looked in and staring right back at him. He suddenly got a strange deja vu feeling. It lasted a split second, but it was enough to leave him with an odd feeling that lingered. Jeff blinked, shocked by the distant memory that had unexpectedly pushed its way intro the window, and saw a man, his disconnected, twisted mind. What? It was like a different life.
And saw a man, his disconnected, twisted mind. What?
Maddie the killer.
No,
I know. It was like a different life. He was a different person now. He felt no pain and not an ounce of remorse. As he crossed the road to the gas station, he noticed an old rusted blue truck parked in the corner of the parking lot.
Really?
Though the windscreen was caked with dirt, for just a moment he thought he could make out a dark figure inside the vehicle, watching him. He turned away to enter the store, grabbing the last turkey sandwich off the shelf along with some bottled water, and took it to the store clerk. The clerk is an old man.
Wait.
He took it to the store clerk, but the clerk is an old man. Tense swap. He turns and looks Jeff straight in the eye. Mom! Jeff called. Oh, this is another flashback. Mom! Jeff calls from the other end of the store. Can me and Liu get some soda?
No, I think you've had more than enough soda for one day.
Their mother called back. Oh, how about juice?
Such a difference. I guess just hurry up and pick something. We've still got a long journey ahead of us.
Just no more carbonation, but you can have all the sugar you want. Jeff reached up to grab a carton of apple juice and then another for Leo and shuffled over to the counter. The boy's mother's cartons from them. The boy's mother's cartons from them and placed them on the counter along with a few other items for the rest of the journey.
That's not even a sentence.
That's a really weird, that could be a weird joke. The boy's mother's cartons.
The man at the counter turned to fat.
The man at the counter turned to Fat Market and the boys. He was fairly old and scrawny, balding. He smiled, his teeth uneven and discolored. Jeff didn't exactly know why, but the man almost scared him a little. He's trying to fuck you. A strange feeling washed over him, like he wasn't safe in the presence of the old man. He wasn't. As they left the store and stepped out into the parking lot, Jeff had some and look at the man one last time. It was true to say that he was fairly tired at the time, but all the same, he could have sworn he saw the man slowly lift a bony finger to his lip as if to shush him. Jeff felt a shiver creep down his spine. Jeff turned to see his mother and heard her urgent cries.
Jeff, come out of the road, you.
The last thing Jeff remembered that night was waking up in a hospital room with a huge headache. This is not a flashback.
No, it's not.
Apparently, he had wandered into the road and been hit by a car. He had been very lucky and only
Well,
suffered
he's in
a
a-
few cuts and bruises and a minor concussion. He probably got hit by a smart car.
How fast are they going in a
Going
parking
like
lot?
5 miles an hour.
They're in a parking
Oh
And Jeff smiles widely as he remembers this. He figured, that if it weren't for that knocking to the head, if not, he may not have been the person he was today. The person he was meant to be. What?
That's the person.
Yeah,
It's meant to be.
He may still have been in the dark and never known his true purpose or what it felt strange urge to turn back like to take a life.
urge strange. Let me read that again. He may have still been in the dark and never known his true purpose or what it felt strange urge to turn back like to take a life urge strange. He may have just been another ignorant shithead, remorseful and weak.
Sir!
Sir! A voice broke through his thoughts.
What? Is there anything else?
Jeff looked at the man, realizing that he had been the one to trigger that memory because he was Japanese. No, but it was certainly not the same man from all those years ago.
No!
He said gruffly.
Thank you!
No, that's Jeff.
I know.
Oh, okay.
He said
What?
gruffly.
Oh, gruffly, okay.
Are you okay?
The man asked, concerned.
I'm fine.
Jeff replied quickly, pulling his hood further over
Pulling
his
his
face, and before the man could say another word, he left the store.
Good job.
He doesn't know how lucky he is.
Jeff thought to himself vaguely.
I could have taken his side and life away from him right there and then. It would have been so easy.
As he walked across the parking lot, he noticed the blue truck was still there. He glanced at it for a moment before the engine suddenly roared to life, the headlights almost blinding him. And the truck sped right past him, ripping through a puddle and soaking Jeff from head to toe.
Ripping through it.
He
Like
just
a piece
stood
of paper.
there and watched the truck race out the parking lot and down the road at alarming speed. He himself. What? Being soaked was something he'd become accustomed to, but seldom was he ever caught off guard like that.
Yet he watched the car.
He stomped irritably down the road, cursing under his breath. The anger growing in his gut. In his hot rage, he could feel that feeling return. That unmistakable desire, no, that need
Da-da-da.
to kill.
Da-da-da.
If so, if he so chose, he could walk back into that store and...
Da-da-da.
Hold on, okay, just give me a second. This is hard to read.
It is.
No!
Jeff muttered to himself. The time wasn't right. He moved on the cushion.
Okay.
You take over.
As growled fiercely once he recomposing.
Jeff.
His last name!
Jeff.
I need to go get a soda.
As he growled fiercely once he recomposing, Jeff approached the large family house. He began to feel as though something was a bit off. But any doubt soon vanished when he heard the distinct sound of a baby cry from inside the house. Okay. He smiled widely at the prospect of an unsuspecting family soon to meet their end at his hands. Ideas exploded in his mind as he considered the possibilities lying just within the walls of this house. Carefully, Jeff clambered over the seemingly newly painted gate and headed to the rear end of the house. He found the back door in an instant and was glad to find it unlocked. Silently, he stepped in through the door, finding himself in a large, dark kitchen. His eyes, though often dry and itchy due to a lack of moisture,
Okay, I'll take over. Were well accustomed to the dark, and he navigated the house with ease. Jeff crept into the hallway. That's not how you spell hallway.
Hallway.
That's not even how you start to spell hallway.
I think
Jeff crept into the
hella. Jeff crept into the hall.
Jeff crept into the hella Jeff.
Moving on.
Suddenly, there was a slight shuffling sound.
Oh no.
He looked behind him